We are reading A Course in Miracles. We're on chapter 22, Salvation and the Holy Relationship. And this is section 1, the message of the holy relationship. In Helen's original handwritten notes, the introduction is called The Undoing of Differences. And this section is Christ Reborn into His Ancient Home. That was the original title. And here it's the message of the holy relationship. Here we go. Let reason take another step. If you attack whom God would heal and hate the one He loves, then you and your Creator have a different will. Yet if you are His will, what you must then believe is that you are not yourself. You can indeed believe this, and you do. And you have faith in this and see much evidence on its behalf. And where, you wonder, does your strange uneasiness, your sense of being disconnected, and your haunting fear of lack of meaning in yourself arise? It is as though you wandered in without a plan of any kind except to wander off, for only that seems certain. Yet we have heard a very similar description earlier, but it was not of you. But still, the strange idea which it does accurately describe, you think is you. Reason would tell you that the world you see through eyes that are not yours must make no sense to you. To whom would seeing such as this send back its messages? Surely not you, whose sight is wholly independent of the eyes that look upon the world. If this is not your vision, what can it show to you? The brain cannot interpret what your vision sees. This you would understand. The brain interprets to the body of which it is a part. But what it says you cannot understand, yet you have listened to it, and long and hard you tried to understand its messages. You have not realized it is impossible to understand what fails entirely to reach you. You have received no messages at all you understand, for you have listened to what can never communicate at all. Think then what happens. Denying what you are and firm in faith that you are something else, this something else that you have made to be yourself becomes your sight. Yet it must be the, quote, something else, unquote, that sees and as not you explains its sight to you. Your vision would, of course, render this quite unnecessary. Yet if your eyes are closed and you have called upon this thing to lead you, asking it to explain to you the world it sees, you have no reason not to listen, nor to suspect that what it tells you is not true. Reason will tell you it cannot be true because you do not understand it. God has no secrets. He does not lead you through a world of misery, waiting to tell you at the journey's end why He did this to you. What could be secret from God's will? Yet you believe that you have secrets. What could your secrets be except another, quote, will, unquote, that is your own, apart from His? Reason would tell you that this is no secret that need be hidden as a sin, but a mistake indeed. Let not your fear of sin protect it from correction, for the attraction of guilt is only fear. Here is the one emotion that you made, whatever it may seem to be. This is the emotion of secrecy, of private thoughts, and of the body. This is the one emotion that opposes love and always leads to sight of differences and loss of sameness. Here is the one emotion that keeps you blind, dependent on the self you think you made to lead you through the world it made for you. Your sight was given you along with everything that you can understand. You will perceive no difficulty in understanding what this vision tells you, for everyone sees only what he thinks he is. And what your sight would show you, you will understand because it is the truth. Only your vision can convey to you what you can see. It reaches you directly, without a need to be interpreted to you. What needs interpretation must be alien, nor will it ever be made understandable by an interpreter you cannot understand. Of all the messages you have received and failed to understand, this course alone is open to your understanding and can be understood. This is your language. You do not understand it yet only because your whole communication is like a baby's. The sounds a baby makes and what he hears are highly unreliable, meaning different things to him at different times. Neither the sounds he hears nor sights he sees are stable yet. But what he hears and does not understand will be his native tongue, through which he will communicate with those around him and they with him. And the strange shifting ones he sees about him will become to him his comforters, and he will recognize his home and see them there with him. So in each holy relationship is the ability to communicate instead of separate, reborn. Yet a holy relationship, so recently reborn itself from an unholy relationship, and yet more ancient than the old illusion it has replaced, is like a baby now in its rebirth. Still, in this infant is your vision returned to you, and he will speak the language you can understand. He is not nurtured by the, quote, something else, unquote, you thought was you. He was not given there, nor was received by anything except yourself. For no two brothers can unite except through Christ, whose vision sees them one. Think what is given you, my holy brother. This child will teach you what you do not understand and make it plain. For his will be no alien tongue. He will need no interpreter to you, for it was you who taught him what he knows because you knew it. He could not come to anyone but you, never to, quote, something else, unquote. Where Christ has entered, no one is alone, for never could he find a home in separate ones. Yet must he be reborn into his ancient home, so seeming new and yet as old as he, a tiny newcomer, dependent on the holiness of your relationship to let him live. Be certain God did not entrust his Son to the unworthy. Nothing but what is part of him is worthy of being joined. Nor is it possible that anything not part of him can join. Communication must have been restored to those who join. For this they could not do through bodies. What then has joined them? Reason will tell you that they must have been seen each other through a vision not of the body, and communicated in a language the body does not speak. Nor could it be fearful sight or sound that drew them gently into one. Rather, in each the other saw a perfect shelter where his self could be reborn in safety and in peace. Such did his reason tell him, such he believed, because it was the truth. Here is the first direct perception that you can make. You make it through awareness older than perception, and yet reborn in just an instant. For what is time to what was always so? Think what that instant brought, the recognition that the, quote, something else, unquote, you thought was you is an illusion. And truth came instantly to show you where yourself must be. It is denial of illusions that calls on truth, for to deny illusions is to recognize that fear is meaningless. Into the holy home, where fear is powerless, love enters thankfully, grateful that it is one with you who joined to let it enter. Christ comes to what is like himself, the same, not different, for he is always drawn unto himself. What is as like him as a holy relationship? And what draws you and your brother together draws him to you. Here are his sweetness and his gentle innocence protected from attack. And here can he return in confidence, for faith in another is always faith in him. You are indeed correct in looking on your brother as his chosen home, for here you will with him and with his Father. This is your Father's will for you, and yours with his. And who is drawn to Christ is drawn to God, as surely as both are drawn to every holy relationship, the home prepared for them as earth is returned, as earth is turned to heaven. The message of the holy relationship. Challenging reading. If you're just listening to this and not reading the words and not, looking carefully at the words, it might not make a lot of sense. So we're going to try to clarify it a little bit, simplify it. But let's just read this one part, which I think is, where Jesus says, of all the messages you have received and failed to understand, this course alone is open to your understanding and can be understood. Jesus is saying, you don't fully understand this course yet. You don't understand this. But the course, and then he says, this is your language. And you're like a baby. I have a 5-year-old. My son, Sonny, he's almost 5 now. And I don't remember, but I still remember, but I don't remember. when he couldn't talk. And when he was just born in the world, and he was making sounds, and he was vocalizing and doing all sorts of stuff. And over time, he began to learn words, first sounds, and he began to repeat words over and over and over again. And now he's got a very advanced vocabulary for a 4-year-old. He's talking up a storm, and he really, I'm surprised at how much he knows. How many, his vocabulary is quite large. It's going to be interesting how he turns out. But my point is, and what Jesus is saying here is that there was a time not too long ago when that child didn't know the language, right? And now it's so familiar, it's second nature to him. So familiar to him, he doesn't search for words. And we say even advanced things to him, and he understands what we're saying. He gets it all. He retains it all, and he understands. Jesus is saying that's the same thing with this course. It's the same thing what he's saying. We've been so conditioned to the ego's way of seeing things, and the body and the brain, which is the brain. The brain is not the mind. When Jesus talks about the mind, he's not talking about the brain. The brain is separate. The brain is conditioned just as the body, just as we have been conditioned to see bodies and see through the body, through the body's eyes, and through how the brain interprets things. Jesus is saying that that's unnatural. That's not our natural state, and that's why we don't understand anything here. That's why nothing really makes sense, because the ego doesn't make sense, and the ego is the ego's whole game is not to make any sense, right? The ego is about dead ends, right? And the cycle of suffering, whereas the Holy Spirit, the thought system of God, of the Holy Spirit, is very natural, but we have forgotten, and we have again been very conditioned. Again, we are like the prisoners in the cave, in Plato's cave, watching the shadows on the wall, and it's very familiar to us, and we've grown familiar, and we've grown used to it. But if we really look back and search, and that's why we resonate with the Course on some level, because we know this world is not our home. We know that what we see here is not it. Everyone knows this is nowhere, as Neil Young said. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows what love is. That love is, and that we are love, and that this whole thing is a charade and a joke. Everyone knows that. We may deny it, we may fight against that idea, but we, on a deeper level, we know that's true. So eventually this Course is going to make complete sense, and it's going to turn out that we realize that we wrote this Course. We are the one that's giving the Course. We're not any different. If you could fully understand the Course, and you will, if you keep doing this inner work, you will realize you are the author of this. So who wrote A Course in Miracles? You did. Jesus doesn't say that here exactly, but in a way he does. He says, this is your language. This is your language. This Course, you don't really understand yet, because you're still a baby, is your language. Still in this infant is your vision. Okay. Yet a holy relationship so recently reborn itself from an unholy relationship and yet more ancient than the old illusion it has replaced, is like a baby now in its rebirth. So, baby steps, right? We have to move step by step. It's been likened to a ladder, step by step up the ladder, back to the place we never left, which is our true home, and we can call it love. And Jesus does call it love here. He also calls it God, but and you realize it's a movement from time to timelessness, and that movement takes no time. In reality, I think the realization is that there is no time, and it's ever present, and that understanding is ever present, and that it is God's will, and Jesus says, not only is it God's will, but you are God's will. It's not even correct to say your will is one with God's. It is, you are God's will. It's like saying you are God. You are part and parcel, not any different. You are the drop in the ocean, but really you are the ocean. If you're the drop in the ocean, you are the ocean. Once you merge, there's no difference. There's no separation. Christ comes to what is like himself, the same, not different, for he is always drawn unto himself. That's why you have to fulfill the conditions that this course is presenting, the conditions to return to that Christ identity. You do have to release what is in the way, to be as Christ, and then Christ comes to you, because as you let go of the things that are in the way of that Christ. We might not even say Christ consciousness, but Christ beingness. Then Christ comes. But Christ has always come. It's not like there's any second coming. Christ has always been. Right? It's never changed. It's never been any different. What is as like him as a holy relationship, and what draws you and your brother together draws him to you. When two or more are gathered in my name, or two or three are gathered, it's really two or more are gathered in my name. It's when two or more, it's not to say two or more are gathered, right, in praying in Christ's name. It's when two come together and they see the Christ in each other. They see through the vision, with Christ's vision, see the other as Christ. That is the holy relationship. And they see the perfection of the other, and see that there is nothing to hold against that person whatsoever. We are both full, we are both perfect, we are both one, and we are both whole together. Not separate, we are not bodies, we are spirit. And we are one in spirit. And that goes for everyone. Not just some, but everyone. Everyone. There's no one outside of that. And I think in the Gospels, there is a sense in which there are some that are not, there are the elect. There are some that are chosen, right? Many are called, but few are chosen, as in Matthew. And Jesus corrects that and says, all are called, but few choose all are called, but few choose to listen to the call, and few choose to go all the way with with this. Why? Because of the fear. And so it's not, there's no judgment. There's complete compassion for the fact that it's scary, right? There's no judgment. We all have the fear, and we all have the opportunity to undo the fear, undo the ego, to release the fear, and to learn that the fear is not real, and love is waiting for us. Thanks for listening, and we will continue with your brother's sinlessness. Sinlessness is the next section. Thank you. Shalom.